The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the 10th day of September 2024. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. I'm Jamal Hartman. She's Teray Tall, and Maya Palacio will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break. Happy Tuesday, Teray. How are you?
Happy Tuesday. I'm good. I went to a baseball game last night, which was fun.
Like a Toronto Blue Jays baseball game?
Mm-hmm. They were playing the Mets.
Okay. So you're going to be practicing for basketball. You went to baseball. Talk to me. How was it?
It was really good. I mean, I left thinking, what happened, in the beginning, middle, and end. I feel like if you don't really know like the technicalities of baseball, it's kind of like you just end up looking at the players. But like, it was fun.
Okay.
How's packing?
I mean,
well, unpacking at this point, right?
Yeah, it's a task, Teray. I wish I could have went to the baseball game with you. Who won the game?
Oh, to be honest, I don't know. I really don't know.
Oh, we're not taking Teray to a sports event, folks. So true story. I'm a big Atlanta Braves fan. Used to go to games when I was younger. Went to a game or two with my pops, but my godfather's wife would go and she would read a book the whole game. I'm like, how are you at this game with all this excitement and you're reading a book? You're not one of those, are you?
No, I'm definitely not one of those. In fact, like the entire time I was thinking, this is amazing. Like so many people, I'm pretty sure probably don't even like each other, are just collectively like so in tune because of sports. So sports has this kind of rallying around the flag effect. So no, I would definitely never read a book. But it was just so interesting. Like the entire time I was like looking around, like even the toddlers are like screaming. And I'm like, please, like they barely know, they just know what they feel. So I thought it was a great time. But no books. I was just like, oh, this is cool.
All right. So if Teray did not have a book at the baseball game, there's no excuse for anyone to have a book at the baseball game. All right, folks. Good morning to you as well, Mark, with Arthur C. Phillips. He says good morning, TDH family. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome the former Minister of Finance, the Honorable Curtis Dickinson, on to discuss investment into Bermuda. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve the community. Before we jump into today's conversation, Teray, it's the first day of public school today, apparently.
Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. The Barclay Institute has their first day today. I don't know about everyone else. Well, you just said all public schools, but I know because my sister is starting S1.
Oh, congratulations to your sister. That's a big day. New school, big day. Yeah. Congratulations. Is she ready?
I mean, she's there. So I guess you'll have to get ready.
Audience, do you have anyone starting school today? Let us know. What schools are your family, friends, loved ones, children, godchildren, nieces, nephews? Where are they heading?
Oh, wait, look, Charles H. Jeffers II is telling me that Mets won 3-2. Well, thank you, Charles. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. He would be the one to tell you. But let us know, folks, what schools are your people starting today? Also, here's some internal big news.
What?
Today, September 10th, represents 6 years to the day that Bermuda Communications Group became a registered company, an official company in Bermuda. So big congratulations to my partner Keitha and those in the background who keep this thing going and ticking. And, you know, Craig Simmons, as people were talking about yesterday, he often comes on this show and he speaks about economics and business. And he says, you know, what, 90-something% of businesses will fail. And to make it to 6 years in business is actually considered a milestone, because most businesses they don't exist that long. They don't go that long.
They don't pass the 3-year mark, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. The 3-year mark is the cutoff.
Yeah, 3-year mark, and we've doubled that. So congratulations to everyone who's been a part of BCG over the last 6 years, and happy anniversary to Bermuda Communications Group. Suzanne Ingham says, awesome Tuesday. Jamel Teray, yes, public schools are in. I have 2 grands going to Barkley. Congratulations to your grands, and we are wishing them a great school year. We're wishing everyone a great school year. But let's jump into today's conversation, folks. Let's jump right into it. So, thank you, Angeline Butler. Thank you so much. So we kind of touched on yesterday regarding comments that were made by the president of the Bermuda Industrial Union. And if you don't know what we're talking about, I'll just play a clip for you now, and then we'll go into today's question.
And I'm surprised that nobody, well, not I'm saying nobody, but when I heard that there was another banquet here this evening, right? I told them I wouldn't come to the banquet tonight, because I didn't want to be in a part of those people. I didn't. I'm being honest. But they said, no, you're upstairs or downstairs. It's fine. I came in on the top level. I'm going back out on the top level, and I can get out the lobby, and I don't need to see them. So that's fine.
All right. So the question of the morning after seeing that clip is, what can we learn from Chris Ferbert's comments at the Labor Day banquet? What can we learn from his comments? What do you think the lessons in this are? What do you feel, if anything? And honestly, folks, feel free to be okay with his comments. If you're okay with it, that's fine. Honestly, to be honest, my biggest issue, I don't think he was being hateful. I don't think that necessarily, if he were not the union leader, I would have a problem with it. My problem is that you're a union leader and you represent various people. And some of those people may be the people that you're talking about.
Well,
but we go ahead.
Can I question you on that?
Please.
If like President Chris Ferbert didn't say those remarks, but still held that belief, there would be no problem.
I don't see a problem with it. I think, look, one thing I learned from conscription, let me give you some real background on it. I ain't seen nobody in my lifetime experience what we experienced from conscription. There's no fight greater than what we experienced, right? My biggest issue during that time is I thought everyone had to agree with me. That's not how life works.
Right.
And one of my biggest issues was thinking that everyone should understand this issue. That's not how life works. What I had to understand is that some people will come around on their own and some won't come around at all. Do I think that arguing with a white gay man about why conscription is wrong and he's saying, oh, it's not wrong and justifying, do I think that he's the worst person in the world? Absolutely not. I just think he doesn't understand why it's discriminatory. He's refusing to understand that because he thinks his fight's bigger. This is a true story. A white businessman in Bermuda arguing with me on Facebook for years about that. So no, I don't. Look, I'm a very different individual. If a white person came up to me and called me the N-word, that doesn't bother me. I'm sorry. It may bother you and others, but that doesn't bother me. I don't feel that hate or however they feel, that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is what they do, not what they say, but what they do. Now, in saying that, if what they say leads to actions that put me in harm, then that's an issue. And that's where I think Chris Ferbert, as a leader of the union, his words can lead to harm because you're in a position. It's the position for me that he's in. If he held those thoughts within, I'm fine with it. It's not doing me any harm. I don't think it's doing anyone harm for him to feel that way. Well,
there's a lot of things to unpack in everything that you just said. There are a couple of things. One, I feel like you highlighted a really important thing that I think we've lost potentially over the last couple of years, which is that somebody who does a bad thing is not automatically a bad person.
Mhm.
And I refuse to believe that somebody like President Chris Herbert, who has dedicated most of his adult life and youth since long before I was born, is a terrible person and doesn't want great things for Bermuda. Call me naive, call me whatever. I just don't believe that.
Mhm.
But what I do believe is that Bermuda has a deep underbelly of homophobia. This is the same country that in 2016, 68% of the country said we don't favor same-sex marriage. So although I disagree with you in that someone just holding these beliefs doesn't necessarily mean harm, I think it does. I think our actions and are connected to our values and beliefs. I don't think that we should be very, very quick to condemn and potentially even call for President Chris Herbert to resign, because I feel like this is a conversation that has to be started in Bermuda, but it can't be started until we have everyone at the table. So I think that's just the kind of setting of it. Like this conversation is kind of like an emotional landmine. Like everything you say and do will be used against you in the court of public opinion. And I feel like if we're going to kind of get out of this stalemate in Bermuda, where we're at this kind of political landlock, we're going to have those kind of difficult conversations about what homophobia looks like. I agree with you in that sense. He's not a bad person. I think he's
What is homophobia? Help me understand that, because I feel like, again, maybe I'm wrong. I just feel like it's a term that's used to almost demean people who disagree with something. I don't understand it. I've never looked in the dictionary. I just feel like it's used against people who, I'll use Nicole Hassel. She said the older generation are still not accepting the LGBTQ plus community. 002, I don't know. They will stand on their beliefs. Why is someone who holds a belief, they're not, because you said if he kept it to himself, you asked if he kept it to himself, would it be different? If they hold that belief and never share it, are they any better or worse off than somebody who does?
To me, they're worse, because then you never know, like you don't know where they stand. To me, that's potentially cowardly.
But that's how I feel about the Democratic Party. I feel like,
well, that's a different conversation. Hang on, let's not get sidetracked here. You asked for a definition of homophobia. I'm going to give you one. The definition of homophobia.
Let me explain. Donald Trump tells us how he feels.
No, he doesn't.
He
doesn't. Yes, but Donald Trump's feelings are disconnected from reality. The way Donald Trump feels and the way the world spins, their gravitational pull, they're on separate sides of the coins. The man is delusional. He's unwise. He's unintelligible. This is different. I think this is entirely different. Donald Trump's reality is not the reality that I think we live in. But you asked for a definition of homophobia, and I'm going to give you one. It says the dislike or prejudice against gay people. So let's unpack what dislike would mean, or prejudice, and let's try to apply it in this case. Like when you dislike somebody, you kind of remove yourself from them, right? Like you don't want to be in the same space as them, which I think is an applicable kind of example in this case, because in the video he says, I didn't want to be around those people, again, othering them. So it's not a word that people just use. I think it's so prevalent that people can't help but use it. But it's not just something people just throw around.
So would we say that the union president is homophobic, or that he used homophobic comments?
Exact. I would say these comments were homophobic, but I refuse to believe that the president of the Bermuda Industrial Union is a bad person and wakes up and thinks, how can I make Bermuda a worse place? I think he thinks the opposite.
What can we learn from it? I mean, he made the comments. I don't know if he's apologized yet. What can we learn from it? Because there's a sector of the community, especially the Black community, as Cole Hassel said, right? They're not going to accept it. They hold their beliefs, right? They don't agree with it. They're okay being called homophobic, and I mean, that's just where they are. Like, are we gonna? How do we beat it into them? Like, what?
No. Okay. Well, I think there's a lot that we can say about this. I think the first thing is that those comments show that there's clear divisions in the labor movement, because there are queer folk in the labor movement. Linda Bogomienzer that night was receiving an award for being a trailblazer in the union. So there's clear division. It also shows us that there's a lack of unity. Like united we stand, divided we fall. There seems to be a lot of division. But I also feel like most importantly, there's a missed opportunity for coalition building, because when the labor unions particularly were going or starting to gain traction in the US, they built a lot of their strength off marginalized communities who came together and said, we have not the same fight, but a shared fight. And our collective power is stronger than our divided power. But I feel like those comments show us that we have a lot more work to do. What that work looks like, I mean, off the top of my head, I would say that I do think that President Chris Furbett needs to issue an apology, because I don't think that he meant to harm people. I don't think that he meant to cause this much division, but that's the reality. Intention versus impact. Impact always.
People were harmed? You think people were harmed by this, or you're saying that it could have been harmed people?
I definitely think people, I mean, maybe not physically, but imagine walking into work the next day as like a queer member of the union and knowing that the president said he doesn't want to be in the same room as you. I feel like that's an alienating feeling. So yeah.
I'm so different. And I'm speaking as a person who was literally the gum on the bottom of a shoe. And again, I'm speaking personally. I'm not telling anyone they should feel this way, but I'm not bothered by someone not liking me because I'm Black. I've been told, no, but wait for it. I've been told I was a diversity hire in these United States of America in 2006, right? I don't ever want to feel that way. I'm a person who doesn't even agree with DEI. I don't want to be in there simply because I'm Black, right? So for me, if the roles changed to me being Black and I am that 12% or whatever, I'm not feeling any way about that. That's me. I'm not saying everyone else should feel that way. So I cannot relate to how people approach this stuff. I just can't. And that's why I'm asking the questions genuinely, because I don't get it.
Yeah, I think you're thinking on an individual level of like, okay, I have thick skin, I am confident in myself. Therefore, somebody saying that they don't like Black people doesn't matter to me because Black's beautiful, I'm beautiful, et cetera, et cetera. But on a collective level, the messages that we get from people in power, those are important. And if they weren't important, then we wouldn't have worked so hard over the last century, the last like couple decades, to kind of rewire the way Black people feel about themselves, because the messaging that we got from white supremacy was so prevalent and so damaging. So while I can understand that on the collective level, I don't think that it's relevant for the collective one. But back to what can we do? I do think that an apology is necessary. I think there has to be some kind of open conversation. President Chris Furbett can use this as an opportunity to think again, use it as a learning moment, and try to build coalitions within the labor movement. I thought that Linda Bogo-Mianzer was really graceful in her piece in the RG, and she basically said that, like, you know, I'd like to see an apology, and then, you know, the work continues. So I feel like that's somebody who's clearly showing that, listen, this is a problem, but we're willing to work together. So I feel like, honestly, the chips are laid out for them. It's just a matter of what will they do? Is this important to them? Silence is also a choice. Inaction is a choice. So I think people will be watching.
I'm fascinated. You know, Larry, myself, we were in our mid-20s, early 20s in 2005 when we first took that writ to court. Our mindsets have changed so much since that. I'm fascinated and intrigued to see how this plays out over the next decade or so, because time tells a story like none else. So I'm interested to see if the union president actually will apologize. I highly doubt he will, because I don't think he thinks he said anything wrong. Renee Simmons says, as a union leader, if he felt that way, he shouldn't have spoken on it and kept his feelings to himself and get on with the agenda of his event. I think that's another issue I have. He did not have to say anything. He did decide to say something, but I think that was it's two things for me. One, you're speaking about possibly your own members. Like, how can I feel confident you're representing me in the best interest if you're speaking of me like that? If I was a union member and if I was of that community or this community or whatever community, like I would. I mean, I know, Teray, you said not to call for his resignation. I'm not here to do that. I don't believe in that stuff. The whole, what's it called? Cancel culture. I'm not here for that. But there has to be some sort of accountability. So my hope is that him and Sister Linda could sit down at a table and have a discussion. Let's remember, he doesn't represent all unions. Charles H. Jefferson II says 68% of those who voted in 2016, 8 years later, I think the vote would be closer. I don't know if it would pass, but it would be closer.
Interesting. While you go through the comments, Jamal, let me just clarify. I'm not saying that President Chris Herbert shouldn't be said, okay, he has to resign. Like, we shouldn't call for him to resign, because in Bermuda, I don't think that Chris Herbert leaving the post would mean that that belief ceases to exist. I think that because it's so deep-seated in Bermuda, that he represents a large portion of the population. Therefore, the work has to be confronting that belief head on, instead of removing somebody who clearly is prejudiced. But I think in different contexts, like in the summer, like the state or Canada, it would be okay.
Before we bring Maya in, because we've been doing a lot of talking. Yasha Thompson says, Jamal, quote, homophobia as a term used to demean people, and quote, it's well that the term homophobia is seen as one of attack rather than one to highlight and clarify prejudice. Rashida Godwin says, how is it different than being a racist and discriminatory? When we say these are our beliefs, we need to challenge them and reflect on them. Where did we get these beliefs from?
Exactly.
Exactly. Question right there, the Rashida, where these beliefs came from. Manuela John says the leader's comments may lead to not only questioning by those he referred to, whom his union represents, but also those who sympathize with them. Charles H. Jefferson II, he says, given what Teray said, I don't know what he needs to apologize. That he needs to apologize, although I believe it would go a long way to reaffirm his support for all of his members. And Suzanne Ingham says, I have no problem with what he said. He is entitled to his opinion. My question is, if a case got to his desk, where would he stand? Would he put his personal opinion aside and still defend? Teray, any thoughts on those comments before we bring Maya on?
No.
All righty. Let's bring Maya Pelosi in for Daily Hour News Break. We've got the Honorable Curtis Dickinson coming up after that. Stick with us. Should be interesting with Mr. Dickinson this morning. I've asked Teray to be on her best behavior, and I will do the same.
Good morning. Good morning.
Greetings, MP. How are you?
Yeah, truthfully, I'd just rather listen to you guys continue to have this conversation in the back. That's how I felt.
Well, that would be great, but we've got a guest today, and I think we want to, kind of get as much out of him as possible. It's hard getting this guest. He's hard to get. Teray and I could have went on for 2 hours, but I'm sure she wants to talk to Mr. Dickinson as well.
Indeed. Well, good morning, everyone. This is your Daily Hour News Break, brought to you by the good people of People's Pharmacy. So starting out from last week's news when I wasn't here and, show was out for our 1000th, just a reminder that there have been now 4 people called for the C36 by-election. So just getting into it real quickly, we know that for the OBA, it's now Carl Neblett, and as an independent running, it's Cyree Bean. And then coming up next, it was also pointed from the PLP that it was Dr. Emily Gale Deal as well. And in most recent, the FDM did mention that they will be having the Honorable Mark Bean run for the FDM. So just a reminder that the by-election basically came up because of the resignation of PLP MP Kathy Lightbourne-Simmons, and it will be held on October the 4th. It's looking like, if history is repeats itself, that the PLP may have the best chance of getting it because they've gotten it for the past 5 general elections. However, with 4 candidates now up in there, it's a long stretch to pull a lot of votes. So still looking to see what might come out of that.
What do you guys, let's have a prediction right now. Who do you think's going to pull that off?
I don't have enough information. I'm not making a prediction.
Well, like I said, if history repeats itself, it will possibly be the PLP, but FDM, Mark Bean was the closest of the last general election of 2020, coming after Kathy and Simmons. So Lightbourne-Simmons, yeah.
It's hard to read, honestly. It's hard to read because I just don't know. I don't know anything about Mr. Neblett outside of all the letters and that he's a former police officer. Before this, I didn't even remember an announcement about him. I've been told that Mr. Cyree, right? Cyree Bean is, has a big family in the area. He's young, he's energetic, he's bringing new ideas. Then there's the Honorable Mark Bean, who has a longer political career and some love up there. And then it's Reverend Emily Gale Deal, who, again, a very good candidate. Let's just be honest. She's a good candidate. And I think her only setback is there are people who are very unhappy with the ruling party that she's part of. So I don't know. I need to see what each one. I would love, this is where Bermuda Youth Connect comes in. I would love to see them on a stage together.
Debate.
Stay tuned.
Because I think that would help me, but right now I can't call it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can. It's really hard. It's really hard to kind of gauge. So that's why I'm like, I don't have a prediction. I don't have enough info.
But it is really exciting for politics because this is 4 people, and I don't think we've had a by-election with 4 people in a very long time. So
yeah, and keep in mind, I mean, Maya, I think I question numbers and statistics and data because again, people use them for what they want. But there's 5 victories for the PLP. We're not landslides, as Charles said. I mean, Ray Charlton only lost by 8 votes in 2012.
And even the most recent one, like Miss Kathy Lynn Simmons didn't win by that much from Mark Bean. It was still quite close. And then, but things just keep repeating itself. But moving on to our next set of news where we get our guests in. So there was unfortunately a 2-vehicle collision that happened yesterday around 5:50 p.m. on Monday involving 2 motor cars. Now this collision happened in Somerset. What we now know is information suggests that the female driver of the motor car, which was headed west, struck a utility pole, causing the vehicle to cross into the path of an oncoming motor car. Now the driver of the westbound motor car has been taken to the hospital for treatment, and they said that these injuries quite right now are just believed to be non-life threatening, thankfully, and the driver of the other vehicle was not reported to be injured. But just another reminder that we all need to take our time and be careful when we're on these roads.
Let me ask both of you something. Have you ever been involved in a collision or like accident?
No, I have not. I've witnessed some where I've gone and assisted, but I personally have not been involved in a collision.
See,
I've hit the back of my parents' cars, but no collision with another person.
And the reason I ask is I know Maya, you said for years, like we report the fatalities, but there are so many other collisions that happen where there's, injuries. But I asked that because I'm wondering how traumatic these may be to the people involved. Like, it's got to be traumatic. And I'm not talking about material things, just the fact that your life flashed before your eyes. So as Maya always says, just be careful on the roads, be considerate, be defensive. But I can't imagine, especially if children are in the vehicles.
Yes. And the fact that a lot of people are uninsured as well. So, damages to cars being done that can't get fixed and people who might need them for all their children. Like it's so much that goes behind it. Serious head collisions, like things that happen where now families have to take care of you for life. You can't live the same life that you used to anymore. Then now you're not even just impacting your life, but those around you who care for you and want to continue caring for you. But it's going to be a long, tremendous journey. So
yeah, and I think oftentimes we think, oh, it can never be me, or no, it will never happen. And that's that human exceptionalism. Trust me, it can be you. Please take your time and tell others to take their time. It's not cool to speed.
Indeed. Meanwhile, police seized many lots of cannabis plants shortly before 6 p.m. on September the 3rd. They were actually mobilizing patrol when they had occasion to attend a property in the area of Mission Lane in Pembroke. Here's an image of what they found. They tracked the property, drove them to a roof of a derelict building where more than 60 cannabis plants in various stages of growth were found. The plants were seized and subsequently destroyed. Now, the community may recall that, yes, while the Misuse of Drugs Amendment Act does remove cannabis offenses for simple possessions for any persons of 7 grams or less of cannabis, but it does not excuse the fact that it is still illegal to use, sell, handle, or import cannabis, and a person can expect to be prosecuted for such offenses. So reminder, if a person is caught with more than 7 grams of cannabis, that person should expect to be arrested and prosecuted, likely resulting in criminal conviction.
I just say,
what's that face?
I was just going to say hire them for egg and fish. I mean, we could use the, gardening experience on the roundabouts and the roads these days, it's a plant. They're doing a great job.
Yes, we can direct our uses for other things, definitely, in many cases.
You guys think I'm actually being, it's like they used to say when I was young, these guys that are hustling and doing illegal activities, they're great salespeople. Get them in the insurance industry. Like I'm actually being serious. Like Bermuda is not as pristine as it once be. If they can grow a weed plant, that takes a lot of work. From what I've heard, I've watched
allegedly.
I'm just saying. I think put them to use, man. Let's not criminalize them. Put them to use. I know let that be part of the punishment. I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm just okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to have creative solutions to like punishments. So maybe.
Yeah, because what we're doing now in the world that we live in is no decisions. Well, in international news and for some childhood news as well, legendary actor James Earl Jones has died at the age of 93, now leaving behind a very long legacy. And here's a short clip of some of the most profound things that he's done and worked on that might touch your hearts.
Your son?
Yes, my son, the prince.
Don't turn your back on me, Scar.
The great kings of the past look down on us from those stars. I thought I might lose you.
When I first saw the dialogue that said, Luke,
I am your father,
I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're going to play that lie out.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No, I am your father.
That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. Nah, his voice is just, man, absolutely amazing.
Can't say enough about it, honestly. Now, throwing in your sports today, we know that we got our men's football team that's going to be heading to a match today against Antigua and Barbuda. So that'll be at 5 p.m. Bermuda time. I think you should be able to catch that on the CONCACAF on the YouTube channel as well. So tap into that. These guys, they need to win this game. So in order to continue. So good luck to the team.
Indeed, indeed. How's the weather looking?
Today, the weather's looking pretty good, but we should still expect a little bit of rain. So sunny breaks, occasional showers that will dip in every now and then. We got a high of 84 today as well. And we all know the name of the game, humidity, humidity, humidity. So just be mindful of that, but hopefully you catch some rays out there.
All righty. What's the days of the year, Teray?
So today is National Suicide Prevention Day. So if you or anyone that you know is struggling, of course, you can get help and take care of yourself.
Indeed, indeed. And over the years, I've spoken to many people who have been impacted by suicide on this very day. You know, one thing I learned 2 years ago, we were talking to someone and they said the term, and this is a part of education, learning, right? I don't ask questions to be an ass. To be a bad person. I literally am ignorant to a lot of stuff. And I did not know that the term committed suicide was no longer a thing to say, right? It was died by suicide. And I want to share that this morning because, again, the more we know, the more we can respect and appreciate going forward. So to anyone who's been affected by it, we definitely send you our thoughts, our love, and comfort. Maya, have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.
See you guys soon.
All righty, my pleasure, folks. Don't go anywhere. We'll come right back. We've got the Honorable Curtis Dickinson coming up, folks. Oh, it's going to be a doozy.
Let's face it, life can be a little wild, but shopping doesn't have to be. I choose People's, so that whether it's a prescription that needs to be filled, a toy for my little terror, or a gift for a new addition to the family, we'll see about that. Everything's available in one convenient location. Some call it People's. I call it my one-stop shop in the city. People's, we're here for you.
Welcome to the new bulk store, Lindo's Next Level. Wake up in the morning with enough coffee to keep you running throughout the entire day. Your pet at home deserves the best. Stock up on dog food to keep your puppy happy. Need a quick, tasty lunch at home? Your chicken nuggets will be jumping right out of the freezer. What's a movie night without popcorn? You can never have too much. Lindo's Next Level. Why go anyplace else?
Unlock your business potential with BDC's General Microloan, offering up to $30,000 for Bermudian small and medium businesses. Whether it's for inventory, working capital, or equipment, we provide 100% guarantee on approved loans. Simple application, low interest rates, and fast processing. Apply today and make your business dream come true.
Summer is almost here. Dive into the season with dog floats and dog pools. Enjoy 20% off West Paula's dog floating toys and shop our life jackets for safety in the water this summer. Get all your summer needs before the holidays and events begin. Don't forget to stock up on poo bags and check out Dicky Bags, the poo bag holder that locks in the smell until you can dispose of it. Remember, even dogs need sunblock, so visit Noah's Ark today, Bermuda's most trusted animal supply store for all your summer essentials, and ask us about our rewards program.
You think you know Bermuda? Well, put your knowledge to the test on Bermuda Trivia. The Game Show. Whether you're a history buff, a culture connoisseur, or just love your island and people, this is your chance to shine. Show off your skills, win cash prizes, and prove you're the ultimate Bermuda expert. Don't miss out. Your spot-on Bermuda trivia awaits. To be considered as a contestant, register by sending us an email at contact@bermudatrivia.com. Registration deadline is September 10th. All right. Registration deadline for Bermuda Trivia's next round. Your chance to win $1,000 put toward those Belco bills, those high groceries and all. So send an email to contact@bermudatrivia.com. But anyway, welcome back to the big show. She's Teray Tall. I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medicals, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right. Without further ado, well, before we bring Curtis Dickinson on, Teray, just remind us before we go, there's something happening tonight.
Oh, yes, there is something happening tonight. So tonight, the vice president, future president, Kamala Harris is debating Donald Trump.
You said
so. Tune in. Yeah, that's the prediction I'll make, actually. You asked for predictions. She's going to be the next president of the United States.
Former president, though, he is. That's why I was confused.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one thing to call him.
Oh, okay. But, Teray, one bet, before we bring up Curtis Dickinson, one bet.
Okay, what?
He says something racist tonight again. Like, I guarantee you he says something so offensive to her tonight that it will be the talk of the entire thing. I guarantee you. Any bets?
I believe you. I'm on your side. Who are we betting against? Should we bet against former Finance Minister Curtis Dickinson?
Yeah, let's see what his.
Let's see what he says. Yeah, see what he says.
Folks, let's give a warm TDH welcome to former Finance Minister to Curtis Dickinson. Welcome into the show. Greetings, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Jamel. Good morning, Teray. How are you?
Good morning.
Welcome. We're going to put you on the spot. We're going to put you on the spot. So there's do you follow U.S. politics like that? Like, are you following it at all?
Yes.
Every 2 years, I follow it like some people follow the Real Housewives series.
Wow.
So do you pay any attention to the debates? Like, do you watch them where you're like, nah, this is too much?
I didn't watch the last debates. I was out that night. I'm glad I missed it because apparently it was a bit of a train wreck. But I'll be watching tonight. Okay.
All right. What? Anything you expecting tonight? Like anything that you're like hoping that comes out? Because I just think it's going to be. I hate to say this about politics. I just think it's going to be entertaining, and I know it shouldn't be as entertaining as I think it is because this is real life, right?
Listen, you've got two candidates who are fundamentally different people, and what you'll get to see, I think people will get to see tonight, is kind of how they are. And it'll be either a reinforcement of what people thought. I'm not expecting a whole lot that will be revelatory. What one is particularly poised, and the other kind of shoots from the hip. And so I'm expecting kind of that to happen tonight.
Yeah, one is a former prosecutor, one is a convicted felon. So I mean, it can't really get more opposite. So we're really interested.
More opposite than that, right?
Yeah,
well,
but I mean,
so Teray, you choose your words, I'll choose mine.
One of us is actual politician right now. One of them, these two. All right. Well, first of all, thanks for doing this, Mr. Dickinson. We appreciate you making time. Let's jump right into it, though, because there is a debate about investment into Bermuda, how we grow Bermuda. People have a lot of concerns about the economy. There's the corporate tax coming and the like. But can you just explain to our audience why foreign investment is key for Bermuda's growth?
Okay. Listen, I think, so let's set the stage by kind of defining kind of what foreign direct investment is. It's, in the simplest terms, it's an investment made by a company or an individual from one country into business interests located in another country. And typically, foreign direct investment occurs when investors establish foreign business operations or acquire business assets in another jurisdiction. Bermuda has been the beneficiary of foreign direct investment for decades. Our international business sector is ostensibly the greatest example that we can tell people about Bermuda's foreign direct investment. And that investment has served us well over the course of the last 6 decades. Why is it important to Bermuda's future growth? Because we have a growing economy, we have a population, we have a cost of living that is somewhat expensive, and we need more activity, economic activity, to generate more gross national product, more earnings, more tax receipts, and it helps the country to kind of grow its economy. So foreign direct investment is very important, in particular in Bermuda, because we are such a small country with a very limited indigenous or Bermudian population. There are about, let's say, 60,000 of us, if that many. There's a limit on how much we can invest ourselves in our own economy. And so with the help of investment from external investors, that helps to speed up or spur or act as a catalyst to kind of growing our own economy.
And I often hear, I mean, this has been throughout my life, and Teray, I'm not sure if it's heard amongst your peers as well, but there's almost a phobia people have when it comes to foreign investment in Bermuda. I know the 60-40 rule had changed some years ago, but can you explain the pros and cons as it relates to foreign investment into Bermuda?
Well, the first one is obviously, I heard you earlier talking about this being the 6th year anniversary of Bermuda Communications Group. It's a small business, and most businesses unfortunately fail. But in order to start a business, in most instances, you need capital. And what foreign direct investment does is it injects capital at a minimum into an economy. And that's good, because that capital is not only used to start up a business, but it also is used to employ people, whether they're people who are brought in or people who are on the ground. And I'm not sure if people are familiar with the concept called the multiplier concept, but when you choose to spend your money at the grocery store, you are helping to employ people who work in the grocery store. When you spend money to go to the hair salon or to the barbershop, you are helping to employ barbers and hairdressers, or people who work, estheticians, I guess is a broader term you use them. And so this investment actually helps to spur economic activity, and that generally is good. So economic growth is one, job creation is another. A third would be technology transfer. When some of these companies come here, they bring with them access to all kinds of technology that we may not currently have, or the technology that may need to be updated. And so we get access to better technology. We also get access to global markets. The world is incredibly small, and we can do business now kind of from our desktops across the world. And if you look at the population of international companies in Bermuda today, especially in the insurance and reinsurance field, they're global businesses. They're transacting all around the world. And then the fifth pro would be infrastructure development. When these companies come here, they pay tax, they pay salaries, and people pay taxes on their salaries. And so the governments benefit from an increase in tax receipts. As a result of those tax receipts, governments are then able to invest in infrastructure in their countries. So those are the 5 benefits that I would say. Now, conversely, there are also some drawbacks, and if you don't do this properly, you can see that there can be potential challenges that may arise. One would be a loss of control. So there are some islands that have folks who invest lots and lots of money, and when you look back at it, in some instances, those persons, that person, one or two or handful of people, end up being the dominant influencers in an economy. I'm not sure if anybody wants to be subject to the whims of one or two or a handful of people. A second drawback would be the profits that are generated may not necessarily be reinvested in the economy where the business is operating. So they may decide to take the profits out as dividends and repatriate them. Bermuda doesn't so much have this problem, but there could be potential exploitation of resources. So let's assume that if we had a massive natural minerals deposits in Bermuda, or oil, for instance, and someone came in to harvest the oil, they could be exploiting the oil and creating all kinds of environmental issues. You don't want that. Another would be kind of the foreign entrant becomes the dominant force in the local economy. Now, luckily for us, all of our international insurers and reinsurers do not do business in Bermuda. They operate from Bermuda, but they don't sell their products into Bermuda. And then the fifth one would probably be economic dependence. So a country relying heavily on the foreign direct investment participants, and that helps to kind of have them lose a bit of leverage in terms of how they operate. But I think with anything, there are a series of pros, and then if you aren't particularly managing it properly, there are cons.
So let's talk about things that prevent Bermuda from getting foreign direct investment. We've had challenges of being labeled a tax haven for years. So how is this affecting our attempts to attract foreign investment?
Well, my sense is that it has had it depends on who you ask, and it can be very specific to a particular industry. About 50 to 60 years ago, we were a jurisdiction that set up as a place for captive insurance companies. Over time, that has evolved, and we are now termed as one of the risk capitals of the world, with a significant number of property and casualty companies here, and more recently, a number of life reinsurers. I think those companies have done the work. They've done the research, and they can see that this is not a tax haven. This is a place that has a different system of taxation. And when I was Minister of Finance and would be making my trips around advocacy for Bermuda, I would often tell people that the Bermuda tax system, the current one that's currently in place, has been in place for well over 100 years. It's a consumption-based system that was designed to be easy to implement, easy to administer, and easy to collect. We didn't need a massive infrastructure like an Internal Revenue Service or Her Majesty's, Treasury to kind of help to administer our tax system. It was largely honors-based, and it worked for us. And it's been around for 100 years, predating any substantial foreign direct investment by anybody. My own sense is that a lot of the tax haven commentary is a result of us being extraordinarily successful despite our size. And our system of taxation heretofore has been different. And as is the case with most things that are different, if people don't understand them, their instinct is to criticize them or say something is wrong with it. The system has worked for the country, it served us well. And those companies that have decided to invest here understand how Bermuda works, and ostensibly they all pay tax anyway. So Bermuda is not a tax haven. Bermuda has never been a tax haven. And a lot of the chatter around this is nothing more than nonsense. But what I've learned in politics is the moment you have to explain something, you've already lost the argument. And it is very easy for people to advance a claim, and then when you try to respond to it, you're in the business of explaining. And so we have, I think, tried to counter this by doing all that we can do to have people understand what it is Bermuda actually is. And we've demonstrated this through the work that the government has done around money laundering and terrorist financing, around and getting some of the best ratings in the world from the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. The BMA is a regulator of global standing. Those things aren't things that are accomplished by countries that are trying to cut corners and I was going to say juke people, trying to do things that are not in the best interest of themselves or the people who actually are investing in the jurisdiction.
Yeah. Thanks for that. You were on the show 10 months ago, and you said that the corporate tax in Bermuda could work well to dispel these narratives of Bermuda being a tax haven. We're 4 months away from its formal implementation in January 2025. What are your thoughts now?
Listen, I am I'm the one who made the decision, or who advised of the decision, that we were going to embrace this global minimum tax. Before my time as Minister of Finance and during my time as Minister of Finance, our stakeholders were adamantly opposed to this initiative. And we shared their view, largely because we should get to determine for ourselves what our tax system should be. We shouldn't have outside bodies telling us how to run our country. They don't certainly write checks when we need money to do things around here, and so why should they have a say in determining how our system works? But we live in a world where politics plays a very important part, and I can recall months after having been sworn in as Minister of Finance and having received a visit from some executives in the reinsurance space, and we were sitting in the Ministry of Finance boardroom, and we were talking about this issue, and this was in early 2019, and we were having a conversation, and naive me, who often likes to try to solve problems kind of by talking them out, made a statement of something like this: maybe we should embrace this. You know, we get tagged with the tax haven label all the time, and the most difficult thing to ever do is to disprove a negative. If we embrace this, we take away the ability for them to make the argument that we're a tax haven. It was not a statement of policy. It was me just thinking out loud. And everybody kind of looked at me and they smiled and they went away. And then I got a call from a senior person in a trade group saying, "What did you say?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And then he recounted to me my conversation to the people who had visited me. And I said, "Well, that wasn't the statement of policy. That was me thinking out loud, trying to figure out, how to solve a problem. Because when you get these senior jobs, your job really is figuring out how to solve problems." What I learned from that call is, and I probably didn't appreciate it then, which I appreciate a whole lot more, there's a certain power to the words of certain people. When you're the Minister of Finance, when you say something, people actually listen. And so I decided from that point on that I wouldn't be thinking out loud in front of people because it didn't serve me well, it didn't serve them well. But we've accepted the fact that we have to do this tax, this global minimum tax. I think the international business community, which I think the government rightly was very concerned about their reaction to it, folks have embraced the idea, because I think when I was Minister of Finance, when I communicated the decision to a select group of CEOs, my statement went like this: we have to figure this out, and a solution that works for the government but doesn't work for industry, or one that works for industry but doesn't work for the government, is not a solution. We have to sit down together and figure out how we're going to do this so that it makes sense for both the government and for the business community, because we can't do it any other way. And over the course of the last year and a bit, I was involved actually tangentially in some of this work when I was with Filter, the trade organization for the life sector. There was broad consultation. Industry was very involved in helping the government to kind of formulate a framework and a strategy for this. And so I think, that was something that was very commendable We're now doing the very hard work of kind of putting together. So the framework was the foundation. Now we're going to build the walls and put on the roof. And I think over the course of the next few months, we're challenged to kind of get that work done. It's a lot to be done, but we've got 4 months to get it done. So I think the argument about us being a tax haven will go away. Potentially.
Well,
Yeah.
good
So
luck.
I think with these international, I used to joke about certain aspects of the job as Minister of Finance is like Groundhog Day. You have a challenge, you work really hard to deal with the challenge. The challenge is successfully dealt with, only for another challenge to emerge, and you feel sometimes like you are a hamster on a wheel. And so, I don't know the accuracy of the projections that have been made with respect to how much this tax is going to generate. But I think we need to kind of stay tuned to kind of see how it all works. My hope is that this will be what is needed to be done to satisfy the concerns of the OECD and other countries. But we'll see.
Okay. So far, we've talked a lot about the government, corporations, the business community, rightly, but I want to take it down to the lower level and talk about people. Levels of trust in institutions like the government and banks have decreased, particularly among those under 35. Some would call those youth. And I'd argue that the business community is not insulated from those trends of distrust. And you're someone who's made a career in both private and public sectors. Is this trend worrisome to you? And how should the government and corporations respond?
Listen, I have three children, 22, 20, and 16. And so, and my children, while they're all the way in school now, they spend summers with us, so they live with us, and they have the opportunity to have kind of unfettered access to me. And it's interesting that these are, middle class, upper middle class children who have some views that I kind of raise my eyebrows at. And the concerns around governments or business and their trust for them is concerning for me. I try to look at it like this. In any properly functioning country, the thing that kind of helps it move forward is a degree of confidence that people have in their institutions, whether they be public sector institutions or private sector institutions. Think about it. When you get paid every week, every 2 weeks, or every month, you take your paycheck and you deposit it into a bank. And you deposit it with the expectation that when you go back to get your money is going to be there. That's confidence. When you buy an insurance premium on your car or on your house or renter's insurance, what have you, you buy it with the expectation that if you need to make a claim, when you present your claim to the insurer, that they can pay. They can pay it in a timely fashion. And so confidence is very important. It's how the world or any properly functioning economy actually works. I used to be a banker, so let me focus this next example on being a banker. Banks take that money that you deposit, and they make a bet that all of the people who put money into the bank are not going to come to take it all out at the same time. And so they turn around and lend it out. They lend it out to individuals, they lend it out to businesses. Individuals make purchases, whether they buy a home, a car, a bike. And companies make investments where they invest in their business, where they even may buy another business, or they may buy equipment, they may buy materials so that they can start selling things. So the confidence that what you have in a bank is important to kind of how the bank uses that money to kind of fund people who are helping to make an economy work. So it's important that people have confidence in these institutions. Similarly, it's important that people have confidence in their governments. Governments are supposed to be the bedrock of any economy, any society, because governments are intended to kind of help those who are vulnerable. And if we don't deliver for those folks, we run the risk of having anarchy. So I stay concerned, and I think the solutions that I would offer for some of this is, with my kids, they grew up in a home very different than the one that I grew up in. My parents never married. My mother did most of the heavy lifting. My father was involved, but my mom did most of the heavy lifting. My children were born, after we've been married for almost a decade, and all they've known is that mommy and daddy are, a fully functioning, loving couple, and they provide for us. And that, and to some degree, has created a set of expectations around how things work that are very different from what I experienced coming up. And so I don't like to use the word privilege because it seems like a bit of a judgment, but they've had a very fortunate upbringing. And that, I think, has helped to inform how they view things. And so one day, my oldest son said to me, this is probably about 5 to 10 years ago, he said, it's a burden being raised in privilege. And I remember my instinctive response to that was to laugh at him. And he turned around and said, "What you laughing at?" And I said, "Well, for all that Mom and I have done in terms of trying to provide for you, I never expected to be criticized for doing my job properly." But again, context and perspective are very important, because this was a young man who was raised in, for lack of a better term, a very traditional family. My wife lost her mother when she was 11 and her dad when she was 16. So her mother's youngest sister, her aunt, raised her, and she was a single woman who took in her 2 nieces and raised them herself. And she was a housekeeper at South of the Princess Hotel for many, many years. So there was a struggle, and my mom had challenges, health challenges, and we struggled as well. And so our goal had always been to keep our children shielded from any struggle, which we largely did. But they say that when you don't deal with one set of problems, you have another set to deal with. And so there's this notion that with success comes lack of problems. It's just different problems. But I think we have to engage our young people. I think there is a lack of kind of understanding of kind of sometimes how institutions work. I mean, I can remember telling colleagues that the money, I actually said it like this: the money in the bank is not the bank's money. The money in the bank belongs to its depositors. And so I often hear situations of people having issues with institutions. And it's far too easy to kind of embrace those situations as being a massive crisis for everybody who deals with them. Sometimes they're isolated. And the other thing is this: no institution, no person is perfect. And so sometimes people get things wrong, institutions get things wrong. And the way that you fix them is you have to kind of address them head on. But I think we need to do a better job of kind of educating people. And I think, at least on the private sector stuff and on the public sector stuff, what I would encourage for young people to do is get more involved, because ultimately it's your government. Those of us who are older will at some point step away from it. We will die. And the responsibility for continuity will be yours. And my concern about the lack of confidence is that we may be not encouraging people or attracting people to take on responsibilities that are naturally in their best interest.
I think future Premier Teray Tull heard you clearly with that last sentence, sir.
Well, they say that no response is a response, so that would be my response. But I really like the analogy that you gave about your older son. And although I think I can probably relate more to the upbringing of your wife and yourself more than your son, perhaps he's just feeling a fear of maintaining. They say that all things earned have to be also maintained. So although I cannot relate, maybe he's just having a fear of maintaining.
Yeah, listen, I think part of it, sorry for interrupting, part of it is you have to remember that your children are not you. And you have to guide them and help them to make the right choices for themselves. You can't choose for them.
Well,
that's been probably the biggest lesson I've gotten from this parenting journey.
Yeah.
Good lesson. Encouraging the audience to keep sending their questions. We have one from Michael Daniels who's asking, is there a need for increased involvement of Bermudians in local investing?
I think it's always helpful. Banks are traditionally a source of capital for local investment and local business development, but they aren't going to be there for everybody. And sometimes there are opportunities for private individuals to pull together capital to make things happen. That's happened a lot in the past. It's it's not a regulated space, and so there isn't a lot of data on it. But there are always instances of where locals kind of contribute their own money to kind of help an entrepreneur, help a business owner to progress their businesses, and I think that's a normal part of any properly functioning economy.
Charles H. Jeffers II is asking, while on a much smaller scale, are tourists considered foreign investors given that they infuse money into our economy? I like that.
I think you take a very broad definition, yes, but that's not sustainable. So it's kind of more kind of one-offy, and it's not a whole lot of money. But if you aggregate all the tourists, the contributions are meaningful. And for the longest while, tourism was the engine that drove the Bermuda engine. Was the catalyst of the Bermuda engine. And unfortunately, what has happened, I think, is the proliferation of fairly inexpensive air travel has made Bermuda have to compete with other places that are also beautiful and also have nice people.
Indeed. Audience, if you have any more questions and comments, send them through. Got another one from Derek Hendrickson. He says, where does our airport, Belco, ISPs, etc., fall under the foreign direct investment? Since these didn't start as foreign companies, how does that transition affect us?
Well, the owners of the airport is still owned technically by Bermuda. The lease on the airport is held by Aecon, and they invested hundreds of millions of dollars into the construction of a new airport. They will get that money back ostensibly through lease payments that are made every year for over a 30-year term. In the case of Belco, the Algonquin bought the company, and so they wrote checks to the Bermudian shareholders, and that's how the money got kind of filtered back into the economy. They have also make annual investments in capital expenditures to upgrade and maintain their infrastructure if necessary, because our climate is our climate. Their plant is it's something that needs to be properly maintained, and so they have to continue to make investments. But the owners of these entities, the lessor in the case of the airport, continue to make investments in the country, although probably not on as large a scale as their initial investment when they bought or took control of the assets that were Bermuda based.
Indeed. Let's go back.
Foreign direct investment is not a bad thing. It just needs to be managed properly.
Okay. We've got Kia of an ABDA asking, have you been successful in working with and starting up a project you were interested in with the help of foreign investors? And if so, how did you achieve that? And what would be your advice to others?
Well, I've largely worked in the private sector as an employee. I did do some work. It's a nice backdoor question. When I was in the government around trying to encourage foreign direct investment, the opportunity didn't work out and I resigned, partly because I have some very fundamental views on how this should be done properly. My thinking is that in any partnership, you need to create an environment where both partners feel like they're winning. And those are the instances when I think these things generally work the best.
Okay. We've got, they're coming for you, man. They got people showing you love. Graham Smith says Bermuda has the 7th highest savings rate in the world, generating about $2 billion a year in savings. Why isn't some of this savings used for funding government debt? The interest paid would circulate in our economy versus a foreign economy, and direct local investment through the Bermuda Stock Exchange, and other mechanisms.
Well, we have made a decision years and years ago to fund our debt using capital from overseas for a couple of reasons. One, it was readily accessible and fairly inexpensive, and two, you could get the amounts that you need with some degree of certainty. Mm-hmm. There's always been a question around what is the depth of the local capital markets, the BSX. And the BSX today is a much smaller organization with respect to local listings than it was probably a decade or two ago. Part of the challenge, I think, here is that, when I lived and worked in New York and worked on Wall Street, we always talked about a concept called float. So float was how much of the company actually was available to be traded amongst people who want to buy and sell it. In Bermuda, people generally buy and hold. And so there isn't a whole lot of liquidity in the market, and liquidity, believe it or not, actually helps to drive momentum on the price, on the upward movement of the price of a share of stock. So the local market here has always been very small. And over the course of the last 2 decades, companies have been delisting for a number of reasons. In the case of Bank of Bermuda and Butterfield, they got bought. Mm-hmm. Belco got bought. You will have seen recently in the news that BF&M and Argus are combining, and so both of them are listed on a local exchange. At the end of the transaction, should it go through and get regulatory approval, there will only be one, so we're down one. Mm-hmm. So the market has gotten smaller as it relates to local companies. The BSX does a lot of work trying to attract international listings, but those ostensibly do not impact the Bermuda economy from a capital markets perspective. The other thing is, I think Bermudians in many respects are probably not as financially sophisticated as they think they are, and I think it's also easier to get access to a deeper pool of offerings when you look externally, because we're fairly limited size in terms of our capital markets offerings, and you can get greater diversity and choice in the global markets through either the United States or the United Kingdom.
We've got Misha Fubler. He's asking, what are your thoughts on the viability of cooperative essential services and housing in Bermuda?
I think, one of the things that we have to be mindful of is how do we adapt these models so that they can work in the Bermuda context. I have no issue with different models of developing things, cooperatives included. Mm-hmm. But I think the analysis and the work needs to be done to say, here are the dynamics of the Bermuda marketplace. How can we make this thing work in this jurisdiction? Because all things aren't for all places, and maybe a model that works somewhere else may not be right for Bermuda unless it has some adjustments made to it to make it appropriate for a place this size that works the way that we work. Mm-hmm. But I think, listen, there's no one size fits all solution for any economy. We should be trying different things because different models actually may have more resonance in certain quarters than other ones. And what we don't want to do is take the view that it doesn't work because we've never done it here before. I think we've always made our way as a jurisdiction by being innovative, by always thinking outside the box, and by taking an idea and tweaking it or turning it upside down. And so I think we should try these things.
All right. We've got people not trusting government when it comes to their finances, right? In a bid to attract foreign investment, what role does the government play in ensuring that Bermudians aren't being taken for a ride?
That's an easy one, and I did not expect the question. Listen, I think it's important that you know what you know and you know what you don't know, right? And one of the things that we have to be very careful of is not being afraid to raise your hand and say, I need help. You know, what I think good leaders do is they try to surround themselves with people who can provide different perspectives and advice. And one of the things that I tended to rely upon as Minister of Finance was the advice of people who had more expertise in areas where I may not have had. And so, because, you know, notwithstanding that I had more than a decade of banking experience inside of Butterfield and another decade of experience kind of as a financier on Wall Street, I don't know everything about financings. I certainly can easily understand and grasp the concepts fairly easy, but you know, not working in the field directly day in, day out for a while, your tools get a little bit dull. When you lead, your job isn't to kind of do the actual doing, it's to kind of set the stage for the doing to be done. And part of the leader's job is principally, in my view, gathering the team, but also being the chief interrogator. And when I say interrogate, it's not a confrontational use of the word. It's, you want to be far enough away from it where you can ask questions that may on the surface seem dumb, but need to be answered so that your understanding is fuller. Because part of your job is to be able to then go out and explain to the people who you're leading what you're doing. And if you can't make what you're doing accessible to them, then you perpetuate the thing that we talked about earlier, which is the loss of confidence. So you got to be able to take advice. And I think my brother shared with me a Warren Buffett quote that said that you can't do a good deal with bad people, right? And so there needs to be alignment of interest and an acceptance of the notion that we're trying to create a win-win situation. No one wants to feel at the end of a negotiation where you've kind of concluded things where you feel dirty. Right? You want to feel that I've represented the interests of my stakeholders really well. I've had to make some sort of concessions to get the other side in a place where they feel comfortable as well. And we now can move together forward with the view that we've done the best for both of our collective stakeholders, and hopefully the investment works out for the betterment of everybody who's involved. But you've got to be willing to understand what you know and what you don't know. And in those places where you don't know, you get help to kind of advise you to do things properly.
Indeed. Teray, did you have any further questions? Because I have one more for him.
No, he's off the hook.
All right. So before you go, is there any low-hanging fruit, anything that you would say, you know what, this is an opportunity for Bermuda to look at as far as investment? I think, you know, as far as tourism, we know to build a hotel in Bermuda is so much more expensive in our jurisdiction than others. So people are going to go where they can, you know, make their money back easier. But what other opportunities? Is it just in reinsurance and captive markets? But I think that's where Bermudians, what they need to understand is where are those opportunities going to come from for direct foreign investment that doesn't impact their ability to live?
Listen, I think part of our challenge as a jurisdiction is that we have very limited natural resources, right? So that's why foreign direct investment becomes so important for us. I think we have to do an assessment of kind of what do we do well. It's a proven concept that we are a service economy. We do international business very well, and I get it. I understand it completely. The international business isn't for everybody, and I'm not suggesting that in any way. But international business does throw off lots of revenue. It does contribute. It does affect other parts of our economy. And in terms of low-hanging fruit, we have to do more of what we're doing now while we try to figure out how do we bring some diversification into this economy. I would argue that, we were largely a P&C based international business community. Mm-hmm. That has changed over the course of the last 10, 12 years, where we now have a much larger, a large life reinsurance presence. And so while it's still financial services and insurance, those two things are not correlated. There's the P&C space, the property and casualty space, and then there's the life space, and they're fundamentally different. It's all insurance, but they're different. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of growth in that space, and Bermuda has set us up apart in those regards. And I can see, given that there is, I talked about this before, that there's a $1 trillion per year insurance gap that exists in retirement. In the retirement business. So there are people who don't have enough money to retire, and the life reinsurers are helping to fill that gap in terms of providing solutions for that. That number, as the population ages around the world, runs the risk of getting larger. So there's lots of opportunity for future growth in the life reinsurance space. How do we deal with that? We have to be very thoughtful. It's going to require more people here, and I know that sometimes raises the hair on the back of necks of a lot of Bermudians. Mm-hmm. But that's a way for getting more economic activity. And our natural resource used to be our beaches, but you've talked about it. You said hotels are expensive to build, and there are lots of other places that may not be as beautiful as Bermuda is, but they're pretty nice, and you can travel to them fairly conveniently and inexpensively. And so we have to be mindful of what our value proposition is, and realistic about what the cost of doing things here is, and accepting that tourism will always be a part of kind of what we do for an economy, but it may not ever be as big as it used to be, at least the way it used to be. But I think the best advice that I can give is this problem is not going to be solved in one silo by one person. Mm-hmm. The best way to fix this and address this is to bring people together, because those people who are here because they want to be here. Mm-hmm. And they want this place to be successful. And my sense is that they want to help to find ways of continuing the success that exists here, because it's in their own best interest. And so you need to be collaborative. You need to be open to kind of hearing different ideas. You need to be open to hearing ideas that may not be your own. But collaborating, I think, and it's a simple word, but it's a very difficult concept for some people to sometimes kind of do, could be the way forward to make this all work.
Indeed. Mr. Dickinson, thank you. This was a very helpful conversation. I believe the audience has gotten a lot from it, myself included. I make no, I'm not joking when I say I love to learn. I am very ignorant in terms of things that most people find normal. So that's why I love to do this, ask questions and get an understanding from people who we consider experts. That's why this show exists. So thank you for making time for us. Please know that we'd love to have you back again soon, maybe to discuss some other things as well.
Listen, I'm open to that. I get ribbed every now and then for going silent. take the view that how I respond to things is my choice, and that's my power. And I'm very protective of it, and I speak when I think I have something to say. But I always enjoy coming on, notwithstanding your attempts to be provocative. But sure, I'll do it again sometime soon.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a wonderful day, and thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All
Take care,
right.
Jamal. Take care, Trey.
All right. The Honorable Curtis Dickinson, former Finance Minister of Bermuda. Folks, if you appreciated the conversation this morning, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Make sure you share it with the entire community. There was a lot of important information there, but Teray and I will hopefully have Mr. Dickinson back to speak more specifically about the politics, his politics and his perspectives on politics in Bermuda. But we're going to come back. We've got a daily play coming up.
Oh, I forgot about that. Mercy.
Remember when? And thanks Suzanne Ingham and others for always saying that's not about Bermuda. This is as Bermudian as it gets, Teray. And this is within your realm. Like this is don't be like that, because you and Maya got yesterday. I think I try to scare you guys a bit, but you're gonna get this. I'm confident. All right.
Okay, I'm nervous.
You know what? I put you guys on that pedestal. All right. We'll be right back. Stick with us. Minute 25.
Did you know 3 out of 4 people say that they have a good understanding of life insurance? But do they really? When asked how much the yearly cost would be for a 20-year, $250,000 level term life insurance policy for a healthy 30-year-old, 80% overestimated the cost by 5 times the amount. Ready for this? The true cost for that policy is about $220 a year. That's as little as 66 cents a day, or $20 a month. So let's put this into perspective. Compared to other monthly costs, isn't getting life insurance a no-brainer? If you can trim back on some of these expenses just a little bit, it will allow you to dedicate the savings toward an affordable life insurance policy. Contact one of our life insurance agents today to find the right policy for you.
Take a look at our workwear for construction workers and tradesmen. Durable, stretchable in all the right places, and plenty of options for tools and accessories. Paired with our wide range of tough and comfortable footwear, you can't go wrong. As you can see, Medical House really is a one-stop shop for everybody. We can't wait to see you.
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
All righty, welcome back to the big show. Thanks again to the Honorable former Finance Minister Curtis Dickinson for joining us this morning. Again, folks, if you haven't already, as our colleague Philip Trott says, good morning, everybody. If you could hit the like button, please, it would really help. So make sure you give us a like, a love, share it with your friends, family, your colleagues, your entire community. Thanks again to the BAC group of companies, Medical House, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we can have these conversations with you on a regular basis. And advice from our good friend Suzanne to you, Teray, she says, don't be nervous. Just answer it. If you can't, well, others might not either, like me.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much. You know what it is? In the heat of the moment, like I hate feeling unprepared for anything. So this is really just out of my comfort zone. And I think I spend so much time in fight or flight that I can't process the question or the answer. So here we go.
All right, it's time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia. New Bermuda Trivia episode now available as of last night on bcgtv.com, and the game is in stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right, are you ready, Teray? It's a remember when.
Well, I'm here, so I need to get ready.
All right, I'm going to do something to add to your nerves.
What?
A or question B?
Oh, I mean, are you trying to give me a feeling of control? So if I do bad, then it's my fault.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Let's go A.
All right, so I'll do B. All right. All right, here we go. Former Curtis Dickinson is a former finance minister, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was the first person appointed as finance minister under the PLP government after their win in 1998?
Wait, I know this. Richard? Someone Richard? Eugene Gatto. Okay. Thank you, Sheldon Fox. Thank you.
Yeah, it was Paula Cox's father. It was C. Eugene Cox. Yeah. And that's okay, Teray. Look.
Listen, this is a learning show. This is a learning show.
Folks, one of the things I appreciate, and not many people are like this, I am okay expressing my ignorance as long as it doesn't hurt others, right? I'm okay with my ignorance because I'm here to learn. I am here to learn. I know what my strengths are, right? And guess what? We all know that now. There are people who are watching this show that didn't know that. And if you remember correctly, Eugene Cox was respectfully probably one of the best finance ministers, if not the best, that we've had under the PLP. The economy was booming. So see Eugene Cox. That is the answer today. Teray, let's wrap it up though. What are your final thoughts on this morning's discussion? And first off, I want to say I appreciate what you said is regarding President Furbert. We're not calling for his head.
Not at all.
I appreciate you said that because I think that's what has rubbed people the wrong way all these years. And for me, it's about education. But take it away. I don't want to take away. Obviously, that conversation, and then the Honorable former Finance Minister Curtis Dickinson. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I think you're right to kind of say that we shouldn't be calling for President Chris Herbert's head because it's not productive and it doesn't root out the issue, particularly in Bermuda when we know that there's deep-seated homophobia. I think I'm just hopeful that the union itself and Chris Herbert uses this as an opportunity to think again and use it as a kind of learning moment. Because think about how many people think the same way, but perhaps are thinking that way because of reasons that may not be real or may not be correct. So I feel like he has an opportunity to do good, and I trust that he will. Like I really do trust, or at least hope that he will. But again, I also don't want to take away from the fact that these were really disappointing remarks, and I don't want it to seem like I'm coddling or kind of like doing like a whataboutism to this, because it really is a serious problem, and people were really offended, and they have very well-founded reasons to be offended. And I don't think it's the burden of LGBTQ or queer people in Bermuda to kind of move this forward. I think allies and people who have the energy can help with it. But again, it's disappointing, and I want to see some action. I'm hopeful that it will come. But if not, then I mean, then the rest is up to us. I mean, the labor unions, they have a problem. They have a youth problem. People are disengaged. Membership perhaps is down. So I mean, I think right now we're at a kind of tipping point where things can either change, or organizations and people can become obsolete, and then their legacies may be washed away with it.
Indeed. And Curtis Dickinson.
I don't know. I feel so light after talking to former Minister of Finance. He just brings a level of clarity, a level of knowledge, and his presence is it's so inspiring. And I feel like I know a lot of young people, like a lot of my friends are big fans of him. So I really enjoy listening to him. So getting to interview him is a big honor. But I think it was a great conversation, a lot of informative pieces. So if anyone is interested in just learning more about foreign direct investment, I think this is a conversation that needs to be shared and potentially even kind of broken up, because there's a lot of informative pieces and educational pieces in here.
Yeah. I'm going to respond to the Chris Herbert thing like this. I always said, I remember saying to Sister Linda Bogemeisen years ago, I think our conscription fight was very different from LGBT because we were fighting to be excluded, not included. And I shared something last night on my WhatsApp status, and it said, I wanted to work for a company that cared deeply about me, so I employed myself. And I remember saying to her years ago, oh, they don't want you in the church, go create your own. Because I believe in the Marcus Garvey way of thinking about building our own for ourselves. However, just because I feel that way doesn't mean that it's in the best interest of everyone. And I believe that if people are being denied access for whatever reason to participate for some discriminatory reason, I think it needs to be addressed, because what we don't want is to create more divisiveness, especially in a small community. It's so it's not dependent on your success or not. So I have a lot of problems with President Furbert saying what he said. And again, I'll repeat, you have members that are part of both. So I think for me, I'm with you, Teray. It's not about calling for his head, but I would love, and I'm going to put pressure on you, Bermuda Youth Connect. I'm just jokingly, but seriously, is young people like you that drive these conversations. If not just the debates, but you know what? Let's have a sit around a table with him and some members of his union that may be impacted. That's education, information. That's the way forward. What I don't like is dismissing it and just becoming that person on the other side, because I think that's what happens sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's a very real concern. I mean, we live in very polarized times. But I definitely agree with you. I will say though that I understand the sentiment of okay, if you're not included here, go somewhere else where you're included. I understand that sentiment. I just think that over the long term, development of society, that has never worked. And I think that it's difficult to have these conversations that can be emotional minefields, but they're necessary. And I don't think it's a point where people want to be, where people aren't trying to say, you need to accept me and approve me. People are just saying, don't prevent me from doing the things you do. Don't prevent me from having a standard and quality of life. And I think that we have to kind of start to shave those calluses that we have around these social issues. And this could be a really pivotal start to that. And Bermuda Youth Connect is always open to having these conversations, but it requires stakeholder buy-in. So whether that's public outrage that kind of goes beyond Twitter, and also includes President Furbert saying, you know what, okay, I'll have a conversation that requires them to be responsive to our needs. So I mean, we're always open, but unfortunately, the pattern is people haven't been interested.
I'm gonna pull you on the carpet real quickly, live on air. This is the end of the show. The discussion's kind of we got like for 2 hours, folks. Honorable Minister Curtis Dickinson, I echo what you said as well. I think he brings a level of calm about topics that, again, I am not a big finance person. When I was doing my MBA, I literally was in tutoring on a daily basis because it was hard for me to grasp, right? I'm not shy about admitting that. So I have to pay extra close attention. And Teray, I'm not sure if you know this, but this is a true story. Teo knows this from years ago. It was easier when we were on radio, but I keep dictionary.com open because even yourself, you may say things I don't understand. I Google it, or I go on merriamdictionary.com. If it's something to do with finance or something and I don't understand, that's what I'm doing here. If you ever hear me typing, folks, because I'm not afraid to admit I don't know.
That's a true sign of intelligence. I mean, I think you're framing it as I'm ignorant. But to me, it sounds like you're acknowledging that you have gaps and you're bridging those gaps. I think that's the most intelligent thing you can do, because what's the alternative?
I'm trying. Honestly, I do try. And I hope that inspires others as well. I mean, I was told long ago, you like to talk, but it's better not to, open your mouth and sound like a fool. You know what I'm saying? So I really try to learn as we're in conversation. So in saying that, I appreciate Mr. Dickinson for making time for us to have that conversation and look forward to having him back sometime soon. Teray, do you have any daily inspiration before we head out?
I do, but before I give you that, I want to say that you and Curtis Dickinson are both Virgos. So, I mean, you have more in common than you think.
Is he? When is
he
his
is. Okay, I want to say August 28th or 26th, because the PLP, wow, the way that I knew that, but not the first finance minister. But I know that the PLP, they always post the birthdays of people in the party. And I remember seeing his around the end of August, which is a Virgo season. And you're also a Virgo. So
thank you. Yes, in 2 days is my birthday.
Hey.
Phil, saying that, Phil's birthday is tomorrow. So Rajay, Teo, Phil tomorrow. So happy birthday to Phil tomorrow, folks. Phil turns.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Uncle Phil. Anyway, this quote was actually inspired by you. Do you remember, I think it was my first episode, you guys, I think it was National Book Day, and I asked you what your favorite book was, and you said you were reading The Psychology of Money?
Yes.
This quote is from The Psychology of Money, and it's from Morgan Housel, and it says, things that have never happened before happen all the time. And I think that echoes exactly what former Minister of Finance, Curtis Dickinson, was just talking about.
Teray, that's a sore spot for me. As I was unpacking, my book was all, I was.
Oh no.
So I'm that person who would order another book if the other book's not right. But that's one of my favorite books. I would encourage anyone to read it. But I also wanted to acknowledge what Teray said earlier. It is Suicide Awareness Today. So just want to say, if you are having suicidal feelings or know someone who is feeling suicidal, please take action and call the Bermuda 24-hour mental health crisis line at MWI. It's 239-1111. So thank you, Maya, for providing that information. And folks, just want to say, if you haven't already, please do not forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you on Thursday. There is no live show tomorrow. She's Teray Tall. I'm Janelle Harton. Please do make it a safe and a great day. We are out. Peace.